There's a bunch of different guys, I would say, rammed into the bottom six. I would even throw Nick Robertson, at least right now, into the conversation, who undoubtedly, Rosie, are going to be fighting for a job. But like Pontus Holmberg is a guy yet to find that consistency, I think, at the NHL level. He's had moments. He's had strings of games where, like, man, this guy's making a difference. He's scoring a big goal. He's been strong defensively. But I still think he's a guy like in transition, trying to find it full time in the NHL. But I think he's going to be another bubble guy for Craig Berube.
Yeah, and I mean, it sucks talking about, these guys right now. I wish there were bigger splashes made and bigger names and, guys that are more etched in stone as far as what they do, what they bring, what they're capable of, what they're going to provide to the Toronto Maple Leafs this year. And we're kind of talking about, Dewar and Holmberg and Robertson in the bottom six, which isn't kind of where we're hoping we'd be. So that's kind of disappointing, but for it being what it is, I mean, yeah, he's a 25-year-old Swedish guy. He's got the upside, like you say. He's capable of doing that thing and making that play and having that big, holy, who was that? Look at him. He's going tonight. It's just a matter of consistency. Like, can you get to a level that you can stay at and that you can be counted on to be that guy? Because that's what you need. You can't just have that 3 times a year. He kind of had a hot end of the week and was really good for those 2 or 3 games. That's great, but that's not really something you can hang your hat on. And I'm sure he's looking at the situation at forward and saying there is opportunity here. And I'm sure he's looking not only to grab one of those bottom 6 spots, but push for a top 6 and show that he can be, a true player that's going to stay in the league and can be a contributing factor every night, and then just gets better and better and adopts the system. And again, like we talked about, gains Chiefs trust and everything else like that. So sky's the limit for him as well. But, again, we're not talking about world beaters here, so you can't expect them to become that just because you want them to. But yeah, all these guys are kind of licking their lips at some opportunity in front of them.
Yeah, truthfully, I don't see an opportunity for Holmberg in the top 6. I think he's better served for the bottom 6. I think Dr. Firewater makes a good point in the chat. He was quite the pest in resistance to Brad Marchand in that Bruins series, which was great to see. Holmberg played some excellent hockey. That's why I bring up his name. It's like you see moments like that, and you see how consistent he was for the most part in that series, and you wonder, what can he do over an 82-game slate? So him specifically, I'm looking at to maybe take that next step with Craig Berube. I think in a perfect world too, like David Kampf, I don't know how long he's going to be a Maple Leaf for, but in a perfect world, I'd rather Holmberg than Kampf, specifically because of the price tag, right? I think he makes obviously less than a David Kampf, and I still think he could probably bring more to the table than David Kampf. So that's the other thing too with Holmberg is like what position you put him at. 3rd line, 4th line. Is he a winger? Is he a center? I think the Leafs lack some serious depth up the middle right now, goes without saying. If they can find somebody to grab the reins at 3C, whether it's Minton, whether they go back to the Max Domi experiment, although I've mentioned time and time again, I like him and I prefer him more on the wing. Is it a Holmberg that can step into that role? I think profoundly we can say at this point in time, it's not going to be David Kampf. He is a 4th line center making 2.5 sheets a year. So I think with Holmberg, there is definitely, as you mentioned, opportunity in the bottom 6. Now it's time to carve out your spot with this team and be a mainstay on that roster if you're him.
Yeah, and that's what they'd be looking for, right? I mean, Craig Berube is going to look at all these guys and figure out where they sit and where they work best according to his system and what his plans are. And, it would be nice to have a guy of Holmberg's ilk, say on the 4th line. It's like, that's where you start to get depth. Guys that maybe aren't normally on the 4th line, but they're like, I get it. I can carve out, a home here. It's not like you're not making any money if you become this mainstay guy. You're killing penalties. You can get the pest thing going in the playoffs and be banging and crashing a little bit, stand up for your teammates, stand tall in front of your net, when there's little scrums and whatnot, and just do all those little things that would make a good 4th liner. It would be nice to have that in spades. And I know that Craig Berube would appreciate that and would like that day in and day out. So yeah, there's room for this guy to come in and say, I'm better than this guy. I'm deserving of this role, and I can play it to a T. And he probably wants to be on the 3rd line, or he probably wants to be you know what I mean? It might not be what he necessarily dreamt of, but if you can get some serious minutes and get some games and chip away at some points and get a good plus minus and, have the reputation of having all the other things covered defensively and smart wise and positionally, then yeah, he could definitely take a step forward this year.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.